the region. The number of passes is up again this year. Among the successes, twins Greg and James McComb, who both got 3 straight A's at Northampton Grammar School. And there's a free BBC helpline for students. It's 0800 101 901. 120 people who survived the massive earthquake in Turkey have arrived back in England. The passengers flew into Stansted Airport this morning to be reunited with their families and describe the scenes of devastation. Resurfacing work on the A140 at Long Stratton in Norfolk has been dubbed irresponsible by councillors. But the Highways Agency says a convoy system, which has caused long delays, is essential to protect workers. That's the news for now. I'm back with Look East on BBC One at 6:30. Until then, from me, good afternoon.
Hello, a very good afternoon to you. There's a sunny prospect through my window here in West London, but I have to tell you it's not that way right across the country by any means, particularly on the eastern side of Scotland down through the eastern side of England too. Rather cloudy prospect there, and it is going to stay wet through the area between the Humber and the Wash down to the northern parts of Norfolk as we move on through the evening and indeed overnight as well. But further to the west where the skies begin to clear, I think we'll find the odd mist and fog patch cropping up, and I suspect the word autumnal will come to mind as the temperatures drop into single figures. Come tomorrow, well, a dry and bright start for many central and western areas, but as we drift towards the east coast again, so it will turn increasingly cloudy and rainy, that whole area of cloud and rain gradually sinking a little bit further towards the south, allowing somewhat brighter conditions in the northeast. Bye-bye for now.
Cruises, the States and various idyllic locations as BBC Two devotes a special afternoon of programmes to getting away from it all. Here Comes the Sun is from 3:30 tomorrow.
From methods of social control came a game with the power to unite.
Young, educated Maori men would soon represent New Zealand and influence styles of play for a generation.
And the power to exclude.
There was a petition by some members of the South African Rugby Board to ensure that there were no Maoris in the team.
A game of conflict and unification and a bitter struggle for possession. The Union Game starts Sunday at 8 o'clock on BBC Two.
Nobody's going anywhere.
Where are they?
I don't know what you're talking about. Evan! It's a setup!
Who put those lights on?
Go! Go! What's that?
I told them what I'd do if they followed me.
Feature-length Casualty.
Go now! Josh.
Saturday at 8:10 on BBC One.
Italian, Greek and Spanish flavours, all from Delia's summer collection in 35 minutes. That's after Esther goes behind the scenes here on BBC Two and discovers a few hidden secrets.
We have the most exciting show for you today. We're going to go behind the scenes and we're going to give away the best kept secrets in show business. First of all, you know, it's always been my ambition to meet Britain's most famous spy. Well, he's actually here today with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James Bond.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
Shaken, not stirred, just the way I like them.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Perhaps you've noticed that it's not Piers Brosnan himself, but it is in fact Douglas James, who is Piers's double. What does a double do?
Double does some of the other things that the main artist doesn't do.
Like?
Get knocked around, run around a lot, as you saw me doing earlier.
We've got got some shots of you. This
You
is
have?
the pre-title sequence of Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay.
Can we look at it now and you tell us which is you and which is him?
I'll try to. That's me. That's him. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's him. That's me.
Very good. So you seem to do the slightly rougher bits, do you? And he
I'm
does...
surprised. I seem to do more than him at the moment.
Well, you did in that sequence, certainly. Now, we do have a publicity still of you, looking very romantic and Piers-like. And I just
Right.
wondered whether this
That's
image...
me. Yeah.
That is you, not him. But does that image do you a lot of good with women?
Sometimes, but sometimes also not, because although it may seem strange and the audience may not agree that being pursued and looked at by women is a downside, but on occasions it really is.
You don't enjoy it?
I didn't say that, I just said on occasions it really is.
Well, tell us an occasion in which you didn't enjoy it.
One particular occasion springs to mind. I was actually at a promotional event. It was a long way from my home, so I was actually stopping in the hotel. Once the event had finished, there was this lady who was quite persistent and wanted to know my room number. So she was so persistent, and being a gentleman, I could not refuse to give her a room number. But it was not my room number. And the room number was actually the organiser of the event. And at breakfast the next morning, he had this fantastic story to tell. He said, guys, you'll never believe what happened last night. And I said, please tell me. He said, about 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock on the door. And so I put my bathrobe on, I turned the light on, and I went to open the door. And there was this lady in her bathrobe with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. And she said, oh, sorry, I seem to have the wrong room. And he went back to bed. And he said, then at 3 o'clock in the morning, there was another knock on the door, but I didn't go and answer. And I said to him, can you imagine, had you not turned the light on and said anything? He said, oh, please don't say that to me.
Now, has your life changed? Has it changed your life?
It has done. Yes. I can't deny it has done. To travel in Concorde is something that most people dream of doing.
Yes.
And I've always thought I would like to travel in Concorde. And then I have a booking, I go to New York, and I fly in Concorde.
And this is only because of your likeness?
It's because there was a guy born 4 years before me that I have a similarity to. And people want to employ me to be a double for him, whether it's for movies, videos, TV, corporate events, promotions, etc.
But what about your own ambitions? I mean, presumably, you had a job before all this.
Oh yes, of course. One of my ambitions has been fulfilled today. I've met Esther, which is fantastic.
But what are you going to do? What will happen if Piers ever loses his job?
Maybe I can enjoy life and go back to being more of myself and not being mistaken for the most successful spy Britain's never had.
So what were you doing before?
I was doing similar things to yourself. I was a TV presenter on cable television. Not as successful as you, of course. Modelling, not as glamorous as you, of course.
So sweet.
And I must tell you, I've not been paid to say this either.
No, I just think it's the Brosnan in you, you know, you're coming out with all this smooth stuff. Though actually, James Bond isn't quite this charming, is he? He tends to act first and talk later, if ever.
Well, I thought I acted a little earlier, so now I'm talking to you.
Well, it's lovely.
And it's a pleasure.
Is there another film in the offing?
Yes, there is, but unfortunately it's classified information, Esther, and if I tell you, I have to kill you.
Oh, fine. We won't ask anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, Douglas James. We have a little more screen magic to reveal to introduce you to Louise, who is responsible for some of the most elegant and invisible makeups in the movies. Louise.
Definitely invisible.
You specialise in making people look beautiful, but not being able to see how you do it.
Well, that's the key. If you look at a movie and you can see their makeup, it means you're studying the makeup and not the movie.
We have some pictures of the sorts of things you've achieved. Mind you, if you look at Juliette Binoche, now...
She is beautiful anyway.
I mean, I assume she looks a bit like that even before you start.
She looks very like that before I start. In The English Patient, it had to be incredibly natural because she was in a monastery and had no way of getting any makeup. So one day the director did say he could see some makeup and we got sent back to the makeup room. So it was really with magnifying glasses and just dotting out freckles, adding a few just so it's more flattering areas, bringing up her cheeks, deepening her lips, just really, really subtle points.
What about mascara and all that stuff?
You put it on, you brush it off, you put it on, you brush it off, so you couldn't see it at all, but in fact her own lashes had been doubled or trebled in size without looking like it's got makeup on.
And you also worked with Kristin Scott Thomas, did you not? Now, was
Yes.
that...
Well, this picture here
Yes.
shows you what filming is like. We were shooting in the desert, which everyone thinks to be really hot, but if you can see what I'm wearing, it was completely freezing. And Kristin has to run around in these flimsy little dresses and I've got to stop her from having a red nose, because we shot in the winter, it was freezing. And, well...
She's obviously naturally very beautiful
She's
too.
very beautiful, but you're allowed, because she was meant to be seen in 1938, we was allowed to put a lot more makeup on, and that was much more fun for me. Because even though it's gorgeous and it's a real art to do such natural beauty, but like any makeup artist, I like to slap it on.
What about if you were confronted with a woman of, mature years, who was anxious to look as good as possible, but not... I'll be honest with you, I'm now at the time in my life when I could either turn into a wrinkly little grey-haired old lady, couldn't I, with a pinny, or I could turn into Barbara Cartland, or I could be somewhere in the middle. I think perhaps I'm somewhere in the middle.
I think we should go somewhere in the middle, definitely.
So
I like what you've got. It's actually very natural what you've got. But I'd like to pile a bit more.
Would you? Where would you put more?
Under the eyes. You don't have anything under your eyes, and I think that'll give you a big lift.
I've got a bag or two.
Well, we cover your bag up.
Really?
Yeah, we just paint it out.
So you think as one gets older, it's safe
bring
to...
up your lips more as well.
Brighter?
No, it's too bright. Yeah, we've got to get it... What we've got to do, you've got to bring out your lip colour, but less of these salmony pinks.
So to people of my age, you would say, tone down the colour?
It's not really toning down... Everybody's different, and you need an expert like me.
I have to say to you that you appear to be slightly censoring the words on the tip of your tongue.
No, I'm not.
You look as if you're saving me from myself. What about people who are younger? What is the trick for them?
There is no trick for everybody. You can't actually say. There's tips and things that will always be helpful.
Yeah.
And they're often to do with fashion and how fashion changes.
Well, we've got a video which demonstrates your makeup. Once again, it's not over the top, even though the ladies themselves are among the most famous in the world. Let's have a look.
Silly games that you were playing, empty words we both were saying. Let's work it out, boy. Let's work it out, boy. Once again, if we endeavor, love will bring us back together. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it.
There. So what are the Spice Girls like to work with?
They're very beautiful, and they're really hard-working. Extremely hard-working. Nothing is too much for them, and that's why they are where they are today.
No tempestuous scenes behind them?
Absolutely the
Would you
opposite.
tell me if there were?
Yes, I would.
Promise me?
No, I would. But that's what was so amazing, because I wasn't expecting. I was expecting trauma after trauma.
And you
in
didn't
fact,
get it?
They said yes to everything.
Don't you ever get bored with other people's skin, having to, pat it and paint it and...
I've never thought about that. It's just my job.
I suppose you must like touching other people, mustn't you? A bit like James Bond. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. Louise Constad, thank you. Now, what about the secrets of the hairdresser? Richard Ward, you do the hair of many an it girl, many of a French aristocrat or a Saudi princess.
That's right.
You do weddings?
Yeah, we do.
Very classy
Yeah,
weddings.
yeah. I've done. I was very lucky to get the two big society weddings this year, which was Henry Dent Brocklehurst and Lily Maltese, their wedding, and Santa Palmer Tompkinson. So I've done those two big...
They must be quite nervous. Don't the girls themselves, the brides, get very nervous?
Oh yeah, I mean you have like 2 or 3 practice sessions beforehand, which is very, very important, because obviously you don't want to turn up on the day sort of not really knowing what you're doing. The more you do these sort of things, the more you meet these people, and then the doors open, and then you get to do their friends, and that's how it all starts. Really.
We've got some behind-the-scenes pictures of some it girls. You with...
That's with Tara, yeah.
Would she mind that picture being shown? You've got all the foil in her hair.
She might do, actually. In fact, maybe that may be the last time I've seen her.
Oh dear. Another career crashes to the ground thanks to us, and this one is...
That's Tamara Beckwith. We were colouring her hair red for charity, she was a fantastic sport for doing that. That was behind the scenes at a big event in the summer. But it's always quite nerve-wracking, because when you do something, what a lot of people don't realise is that when you do these celebrities, their agents are always sitting right behind them, and they're breathing down your neck, and they're really worried that you're going to ruin it, and they're saying, can you guarantee us it's going to come back to normal, because that's obviously where they make their living. So it's always very nerve-wracking, actually, when you do something like that.
Interesting, these tough lives we're hearing about now. Anyway, thank you very much indeed, Richard Ward. Thank you. Magician here, Nikki Hinckley. Now, you're a choreographer.
Yes, that's right.
Having done everything, having been a dancer yourself and all that, you once choreographed me, I do recall.
That's right, in the stonk.
Right.
Many years ago.
We won't remind people of the stonk. It came and went rather quickly. You found it easy, I found it less easy, but you specialise in people like me with two left feet.
Oh, I love it. I love trying to teach people to dance who say they can't, but actually they can.
Now, very famous routine you created, which was for the TV chefs on Children in Need. Do you remember the one? With one or two of their garments.
There it is.
That's right.
Yes.
And they had actually to dance. It was one of the high spots of the night.
It was, yes.
We've sneaked some footage of the rehearsal. And the thing that strikes me is that Anthony Worrell Thompson was obviously a bit of a challenge, because when the other chefs in this rehearsal were starting to look sexy, he looked rather like a policeman flexing his knees. And when all the others kept their trousers discreetly in place, his seemed to have a life of their own.
Yes.
Oh, this is very tricky.
No.
I've got to bottom out. How do I get my...
Don't worry about... Don't put...
I need personal tuition, mate.
Don't put one foot in front of the other. Just have your legs apart. Okay, it's just that bit. Just put your bum out. And then forward, back. Forward.
Whoa, it doesn't feel right.
Forward, back. Yeah, don't come up and down. You know what you're doing? You're going like that.
Oh, I'm going down.
Don't. Just stay there. Legs
Stay in the
apart.
squatted position.
Forward, back.
Oh, I see.
Forward, back. Forward, back. Forward, back. That's it. Your girl's hips, you see. That's what you're supposed to imagine.
He knows exactly. Got it. You talked about an Dalmatian. I would have understood. Tell me about this one.
Under your back. Under your back.
Feel my hip blast, that's it.
With a big T.
It was all right on the night. It's fantastic. He was my biggest challenge, I think, so far.
Right.
Yes.
Even apart from the Teletubbies, because you've choreographed them too.
Yes. Oh, no, I think Anthony was my biggest challenge. The smallest, but my biggest challenge.
Can I just talk about the Teletubbies for a moment? Because you had to invent a sort of way for them to move.
Yes. I started training the Teletubbies about 3 years ago. We had quite a long time, about 4 months in rehearsals. To train the Teletubbies to be Teletubbies.
Can you show us what you mean? How do they move?
Well, I tell you how I did it. A lot of my work with Teletubbies, I took my 2-year-old son in to work with me, and he always copies my dancing, and I said to the Teletubbies, now, this is how you want to do it, just the way he does it. Don't copy me, because I didn't want the Teletubbies to end up looking like me.
Can you show us what you mean?
Well, the Teletubbies do, simply, they do a tiptoe dance, and their toe goes out, and like this, always out. And I can do it, and I can get dancers to do that and look very smart. But I wanted the Teletubbies to do it more like children. And when my son did it, he sort of picked his foot up and did it in it. But that was his little personal way. And I always want the Teletubbies and the people I work with, the artists I work with, to stay themselves, to not be me. You know, so that's what I endeavour to do.
You must spend your whole life watching how people move.
I do. Yeah. All the time. Yes. Love it as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Nikki Hinckley, thank you. Meet Linda Wood. She is a close friend of mine, and the reason is that, bless her heart, she has trained me out of my natural instinct into the clothes that I wear for the show. my natural instinct being rather less elegant, I think, than what you get me into. But you were also, you did the costume for those chefs.
Sure, and I think that was one of my biggest challenges as well.
Now, what went wrong with Anthony's trousers?
Well, it would help if people give you the right measurements. He told me he was 4 inches less round the waist than he ended up being. And that video you saw was the first time I'd met them. We only had 2 days after that video to improve the costumes. And all the briefs that you saw that were ripped off, they grew daily because I just don't understand how the guys did it. They'd come in and each day they were a different size.
They ate out of nervousness. Yeah. I think they were eating constantly because I made them so nervous.
So this had an unfortunate effect on Anthony's waistline.
Oh, yeah, but when they first came in, they were treating me like I was sort of house mother and, oh God, they were so terrified. But by the end of it, it all came off. And at the end, they ended up in the BBC Club bar doing a complete strip with dressing gowns on to the party afterwards.
When you say all came off, that's really what we want to know, isn't it? Did it, on the night in Children in Need, were they as nude as they looked?
Pretty nude. We actually did do some shots to start with on that first day so that the powers to be could decide how nude they could be.
You mean there was an official BBC committee?
Yes, there was. And I had several different pairs of pants which were all made at the beginning in different various stages of nudity. I actually get paid to do this job, you know. It's brilliant.
Says she happily.
Well, I also work on the lottery behind the scenes, and I'm there for any big international artists.
Tell me, Shirley Bassey, you have a story about
Shirley
her.
Bassey decided, just as we were about to do a pre-record, that she wanted diamond rings for Diamonds Are Forever. While we were doing that record, she had dancers with her, and they all split all their trousers because they were a stylist had done them. I had no involvement in this, and so the producer just freaked. So they got me a fast car, and I had half an hour to buy rings for every finger of her hand and do underpants so that the underpants would cover the splits. And I had the floor manager, who's actually working on this programme, on my mobile saying, "How far away are you?" The cab driver was completely demented. We were like bullets.
Because it was live?
Yeah. And I got in, she got the rings on within seconds, and at the end of it, they'd cost £300 because I just went mad on my credit card. And at the end of it, she said to the audience, "And can I keep these rings?" Well, what could everyone say? So she walked out of the studio with hands full of diamond rings. They weren't real diamonds, but very good cost.
But £300 is £300.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Linda Wood. Noticed that our studio is a little more luxurious than usual today. Normally it's rather plain and functional, but today it's a magic wonderland, which is all the work of Bob Warren's. And in fact, if you have a look at the credits of almost all the popular television shows, you'll find Bobby's name. Because you provide the props, the set dressing.
The set dressings, yes.
Right. What are you're I should say that he is responsible for the cuddly toy in the Gen game.
And the quivering bloke.
What are you proudest of apart from that?
Well, recently I'm very proud of Absolutely Fabulous, because that was a great show to do, because Jennifer used to write the scripts and just say, "I want it to look sensational, it's got to be the latest of this, latest of that," and it was great just to go into Conran shop, who would fall over themselves to sort of get all their latest products on the television.
What have you done to us?
Well, I've loaned all this stuff.
Come and have a look.
I've loaned it all in for you today, because your show doesn't have much of a budget, so...
We're just cheap and tacky, but it looks incredibly classy, doesn't it?
It's a Louis XV style, and all this is repro, and there's these big hire houses that just work for the film and television industry all around the Acton and West End areas.
So you're telling me this is all fake stuff?
Yes, it all has to go back tomorrow morning.
Are these fake orchids?
No, these are real, because I know you like your fresh flowers, so you can take those home afterwards.
Oh, thank you. Ooh, look at the perk.
This is real. And this
is real. How much?
And to buy this in the shops would cost you about £35,000.
We have no budget.
No budget.
So we've borrowed it.
You have certainly borrowed it. It all goes back tomorrow morning.
Is that sad? A bit like Cinderella. They must know you.
That's what my job is. You go in one day, and it's like furnishing your house every day of the week. I go in, pick it all comes in, gets dressed on the set, do the show, and it all goes back the next day. And it goes out in another show, another film.
So take a good look at this. If you see it coming up on one of the ad fabs or something like that, you'll know that's how many? £35,000. But to us, 6p.
Nothing.
Nothing. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Bowie Warren. Thank you. introduce you to a musician, a composer, classically trained, a conductor, yes?
Yes, I am, yep.
But that's perhaps not why our viewers would know you.
No, I write television signature tunes, so virtually every child in the country would be able to sing the Live and Kicking theme, for example, and it's one of those jewels in the crown because it's been on the television for 5 years. So I'm very proud to do that, and I get a really great thrill when I go to the kids' school and actually hear them singing my tune. And of course, I'm absolutely anonymous and they've got no idea that I'm anything to do with that.
And the other one I love that you wrote was the Big Breakfast one.
That's right, and that's survived since 1992. That's been on for 7 years altogether, every day.
Shall we remind people of what those two sound like?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do they? And you have to write your music to fit their
Pretty
pictures?
Much, yeah. With Live and Kicking, I mean, they knew that they wanted a contemporary piece of music.
Right.
They knew that they wanted the guitar to be the lead tune.
Right.
And so our music has to follow the contours of those graphics.
What about Big Breakfast, which is such a jolly early morning thing? Did that come to you in the bath or something?
No, it's really a question of what we normally do is pitch and write half a dozen different tunes for the producer to pick. And on that particular occasion, it was a brand new company. And we wrote 6 different tunes, and they didn't really know how this was supposed to work. And they picked one little tune from demo 1, but the second bit from demo 2 was okay, and then the third bit from demo 6. So could you kind of make those into a tune?
It should have sounded like a pig's breakfast.
Oh, well, it should have done, but because the graphics change, there's a bit of a postman whistling, there's a bit of a railway station, that it actually works quite well, that the theme changes and actually contours the pictures.
Have you got an ambition? Is there one programme that you would like to do? I mean, would you like to do the news or...?
Well, of course, we're paid by the minute. Royalties comes into this. And so really, if I could have chosen to have written something like the Coronation Street tune that's been there for the last million years, I mean, I would have the Rolls Royce and all the rest of it. Well, so if I had to choose one, it would be that. Right,
the next Coronation Street, Dave,
yes,
you to do it. Thank you very much indeed,
it's a
Dave.
pleasure.
Thank you. Sticking with music, Mary Hammond manages to make the most unlikely people sing beautifully. You take actors, you take people who've never sung in public, and somehow you coax a voice out of them, don't you? Just to give you an example, do you remember Jason Donovan was really known as an actor on Neighbours until he hit the stage with Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and he sounded like this.
A crash of drums, a flash of lights, my golden coat flew out of sight. The colors faded into darkness, I was left alone. May I return to the beginning, the light is dim and the dream is true, the world and I.
Was he a natural singer, Mary?
Yes, he could already do it. I think in this case, with people that have been very good at something else, and Philip Schofield as well, that did the same role, I think that if they're very comfortable at performing in public, then they're confident, then you're halfway there to training the voice. So,
but only halfway there. I mean, for example, I don't mind doing this sort of thing in public, but on the rare occasions when I'm asked to sing, as I have in pantomime, I have a nervous breakdown. So how do you overcome that?
Well, I think it's learning how to do it properly. That sounds a really corny thing to say, but one of the first things, I work in a lot of West End shows, and people come and say, I really want to be confident, and I think you have to learn how it's done when you're under pressure, and that sort of muscular training. I'm aware that doesn't sound that interesting, but it's just graft actually, and understanding how your voice works, and that gives you the security to be able to do it in public. I think that's the difference.
So if I were going to sing, there's no business like show business,
Right.
what would you say about that?
Okay.
Please, keep it gentle.
Oh, okay, I like a challenge. For a start, I can hear straight away that you'd be slightly more comfortable a bit higher. So let's try. There's no business like
show
no, even
business.
a bit harder than that. There's no business like show business.
She's better, don't you think
Go
she's
on.
better? There's no business like show business, like no business I know.
All right, now what you want to do, if you want to belt,
yes,
which isn't like classical technique, we've learned a lot with sort of voice science actually, us, right? If you think of a lot of rock and pop singers, they naturally sort of tilt backwards, don't they? That's quite a natural thing. And we've found there's a little muscle, cricoid muscle, that tilts this whole larynx backwards so that you get little short fat
This
vocal
may not
folds.
be my best angle.
So
actually.
hang on, you have to make it look a bit more natural than that. You can't do it in 5 minutes. You just shift your body weight. That's all. So it's
Where
tapping.
to?
Just backwards, so you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Now, all right. Now just try. There's no, and use a few more consonants, which are the beginnings of the words, to make your mouth spit the words out. Try it. That's the one.
There's no business like show business like no. I think I'm gonna fall.
Yeah.
Mary, thank you very much. How long do you think it would take?
I'm just going to say more than 2 minutes would be a good idea.
2 years, 5 years, perhaps the world isn't ready, but thank
challenge,
you.
a week.
Right, very good. Well, thank you so much for trying. We have one final secret to reveal to you. It's actually one of the best kept secrets in television. You know that moment on Saturday night when, for one fleeting moment, you think you might be a multimillionaire, and then a voice, the voice of the bulls, destroys that dream, like this.
Drawmaster John Willan, release those big money balls! Number 35, last drawn in September, 15th time as a main ball. Here we go then. And this could be a fortune for you tonight on the National Lottery Draw. There we go.
Now, you may not instantly recognise him, but this, ladies and gentlemen, is Alan Dedicoat. Alan, why have you come in that excellent disguise?
Because it is exactly that, a disguise. I am not known by anyone. No one knows who I am. I am a mystery man about these parts.
And is this important? Why?
I think it is, yeah. I think it's a gag that we've had running for 3.5 years now. We're going to carry on with it. Nobody knows who I am. I have the same problem that Douglas has here. I am mobbed most weeks when people find out who I am. Because when people come to the studio, they do find out who I am.
And they rush up let me ask you a thing. Do you actually go in for the lottery yourself?
Yes, I do.
And have you ever won?
Yes.
And did it affect your voice?
It didn't change my life. It did slightly affect my voice, yes. When we got to the 4th number, I managed to get 4 balls. Apparently my voice went up about half an octave. I suddenly thought, I recognise these numbers. These are mine.
You've done other things that people might recognise your voice from.
Yes, and that's the problem, really. What people do is they recognise the voice. They think, I know that voice from somewhere, but I'm not sure where. Now, if you fly on a number of airlines, I'll ask you not to smoke in the lavatory, that sort of thing.
So you do quite a lot of voiceovers?
Yeah.
Is there a special tone that you use for the lottery?
Yes. It's called excited.
So we now hear you in your normal phase. What's the difference between that and you excited?
Release those big muddy balls! That's the excited version. On a Wednesday, we tone it down a little.
How does that differ from your aircraft voice? Do your aircraft voice?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard this aircraft. May I remind you not to smoke in the lavatories? It's very sort of sexy and coaxing you into doing things.
It would be... Can you imagine if you got them mixed up? Would you mind asking people not to smoke in the loo in your lottery voice?
Please do not smoke in those lavatories! I've told you before!
Don't you long, Alan, to tear off the wig and the glasses and reveal yourself as the star you are and become a personality, visually as well as in terms of your voice?
No, not at all. It means I can go shopping and no one knows who I am. It's marvellous.
And then when you say...
Can you go shopping? And not have people say, well, look, it's Esther.
I quite like
can,
it, though.
you see.
That's the terrible thing about show-offs like myself. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Dedicoat, thank you very much indeed. Well, there's just time, ladies and gentlemen, just time for me to thank all our guests for letting us into their secrets. Thank you so much, and thank you at home for joining us. When I say us, since we've been behind the scenes of so many other shows, why don't we see just who we have working away behind our own scenes? Come with me. The first person I'd like you to meet is
Side now fanning out across the north of England and into southern parts of Scotland, but you also notice we've also got other bursts of rain there just showing up down towards the southeastern quarter, and I think they'll be there through certainly the first half of the night, and then bits and pieces of mist and fog forming quite widely across many parts of the British Isles. Quite a muggy old night to come, and it'll be a slow start to Thursday as well, with 1 or 2 showers across western areas. The last of the rainfall still lingering across the far north of Scotland. Come the afternoon though, a slightly fresher feel. Top temperatures in the south at around about 23. Bye-bye.
This woman is wanted for giving away state beauty secrets. She's also been on the run ever since the end of her last series. Operating under the code name Lowry Turner, she's known to receive help from top hairdressers and makeup consultants. She's dangerous and carries an extensive range of devastatingly practical beauty advice that could put these girls out of a job. We can't have everyone looking like models, can we? Looking Good starts tonight at 8:30 on BBC Two.
Delia's vegetarian dishes, a bit spicy in 35 minutes after Spooky Things on BBC Two with Esther.
Today we're going to look at some of the world's greatest mysteries, like ghosts and crop circles and monsters and vampires. We're asking, are they true, or were they just created by our imagination? And if they aren't true, why do so many people believe in them? Brian Blessed, actor, mountaineer, explorer. You believe in the Yeti, don't you?
Well, yes, I certainly think there's a very good case for the Yeti. It's got many names. It's called Yeti in the Himalayas or Sukpa, and in Canada it's known as Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and in the Russias it's known as the Almas Giant or Chuma, all kinds of names.
Is it the same as the Abominable Snowman?
That's right, the Abominable Snowman is the Sukpa, is the Yeti.
We have seen pictures of it. I don't know how they were captured, but there is a sort of drawing. Do you think that's accurate?
Yes, that looks more Neanderthal, doesn't it? The kind of types that they see in Siberia and central in the Caucasus, they see a lot of that. In Russia, it's called the Almas Giant. It's very interesting that a government, Gorbachev, actually mounted, when he was in power, a £26 million expedition with lots of his scientists to the Almas Mountains, because we're talking about an enormous area. You know, this is a television centre in London, we think this is the big thing, you know, but in actual fact, bigger than Europe, from the Tian Shan Mountains, Celestial Mountains, right to the Altai Mountains, to Outer Mongolia.
And
he sent an expedition because the women and children were, they were complaining that their sisters were being carried off by the Almas Giant, and he mounted an expedition. It is said that they made a marvellous film of it, Esther, and which the Russians would not let us see because it was so conclusive that they didn't want the rest of the world to think that the Russians actually bred monsters.
But we know about Stalin anyway, so it won't be a surprise, will it?
Yes, indeed, yes.
So they found no picture, no skeleton,
well,
no piece of fur?
The Russian evidence is pretty sensational. In Takima, a town called Takima, at the end of the last century, they caught an Almas Giant, a woman about 7.5 feet tall called Zana. She had lots of children. Wicca's World, many years ago, met some of the grandchildren who were enormous. Zana was about almost 8 feet tall, covered in hair. They kept her in cages. They kept her in a stockade. Then she became part of the village. She ploughed the fields. She had children. She bred with human beings. And Wicca's World actually
She was just a large lady.
A very large lady.
Was she another species? Are you telling me she was...
Well, she bred with human beings and had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. And their descendants now live by the in Turkina now, and they're very powerful. They are very dark-skinned. They're very, very hairy. And Wicca's World actually met one of them, who was incredibly powerful and strong with great protruding jaws, and that was on Wicca's World.
Right, you're a big person, Brian.
Yes.
A certain amount of hair.
Well, yes.
Is this what draws you to the subject?
Well, I've let my hair grow a little bit because I get to show. In actual fact, when I was in the Himalayas a few years ago, and I was first talking in Bhutan, because in Western Bhutan there are many, many kind of tales. Western Bhutan is completely unknown. And one valley there would take you 70 years to explore it. And
But
anyway, one of the Sherpas was telling me that in actual fact, his father brought back a yeti, a sukpa, back to his village that he'd shot. It was about 7 feet tall. And I said, well, what did it look like? It looked like you. So therefore, when I meet a yeti, I don't think it'll be disappointed.
But you haven't ever met one? You haven't ever seen one?
No. I think that, as I said, there's orang pendek in Sumatra, there's all kinds of different types in different lands.
You have had some sort of supernatural experience.
Well, what I feel, Esther, is that the greatest mountaineer in the world and greatest explorer is Reinhold Messner. And Messner will not talk to anybody if they don't get their facts right. He's a man of great truth. He's the greatest explorer of all time, climbed Everest without oxygen, etc. A man of infinite truth, Messner, a legend in Europe. And he claims a few years ago that in Western Tibet, he walked straight into a yeti.
He walked into a yeti?
Yes, he said it was out there. He was 7-8 feet tall, negroid features, dome-shaped head, and I watched it for several hours. I said, a gorilla, Reinhold? He said, no. I said, a bear? No, he said, a man. If I had a gun and shot it, I'd have been guilty of murder. It was a giant man. This is Messner. He now, at this moment, went back there, and if Messner's after you, then they got out the Yeti, and he has come back with tremendous footage. He has 5 hours. He's going to reveal to the world intimate filming of the Yeti.
When?
Reinhold Messner.
When is it?
This year or next year.
Or sometime or...
But he's a man of infinite... I mean, you trust him completely.
Do you?
Yes.
So you have absolutely no doubt these monsters exist?
Well, I think we'll go into it with lots of people here because I'm talking for too long. I think there is a need for monsters. When I was a child, when I was 6, 7, I was heartbroken that there were no dinosaurs. We will create them. You know, I loved Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World on the radio, Abraham Seferis, Professor Challenger. I needed monsters. That is a great need. But nevertheless... Esther, they have just found 7 new types of monkey in Venezuela. The giant kangaroo has just been found in New Guinea. A giant kangaroo, tree kangaroo. There is so much. 1/6 of Canada has only been surveyed by helicopter. 2.5 million square miles of Russia, utterly unknown.
How do you feel about the Loch Ness Monster?
Well, I let somebody else plead that case.
Stephen, he's not as convinced about the Loch Ness Monster as he is about the Yeti, but you are. You've devoted your life to it.
I have, yeah, I'm convinced of it.
You've decided to live on the edge of Loch Ness, is that right?
That's right. And the more time I spend living there, and the more people I talk to, the more convinced I become.
Are you sure it's not just that they want the tourists to come up there? They're quite canny, the Scots.
Not many of the people that see it and tell me, because they know that I'm not going to take the mick out of them.
Yes.
Many of the people that describe it to me won't talk publicly about what they've seen. They certainly won't talk to the media. They wouldn't come on here and say, I've seen the Loch Ness Monster.
How much have you given up in your personal life for this pursuit?
Originally, I sold my house, quit my job, and set off north in an old mobile library.
Which you still live in. Why did you do this?
Because there's a I mean, we live in such a tiny little country, this island we live on, and yet we've got this 23-mile long stretch of water containing these big animals that people keep describing.
Now, you have sort of kept a film diary of some of your exploits. We've seen a bit. There was a moment when you had a very near miss, I think. You were, this is you in your mobile library, and then looking out over Loch Ness, and you spot something. What, can you remember spotting this?
This happened a few more times since then. But
right, and were you excited at this point?
Definitely. You see something sticking up like that, and you're off, you're ready to go.
So there it is sticking up, and what did it turn out to be?
That was a stick, actually, yes.
Which is sort of why it was sticking up like that.
And why it was coming towards me, the prevailing weather, it was floating towards me. As it got nearer and nearer, I sort of got more and more, at first excited, and then, damn.
Now,
tomorrow.
Are there lots of sticks and other objects floating about on the surface of the loch?
Plenty. That's a thing you get, right? You get tourists come to Loch Ness, they've heard about it from all over the world, they're desperate to see something, they arrive there, first day, they see 7-humped monster. The first hump disappears, the last hump comes up, next hump disappears, next hump. And they come and tell it to me, and they've got a bit of film of it.
Yeah.
And even before I look at the film, I know what I'm going to see.
What?
It's a boat wake.
Really? All right, well,
Yeah.
let us show you some photographs. Now, there has been a couple of famous photographs. This is one. That's sort of humpy and... as you
That's
just...
as dubious as they get, actually, that one.
What's that one?
It's one of Frank Searle's. He took about more than a dozen photographs.
Is
of
this
just...
a hoax?
That's a hoax, beyond a doubt, yeah.
And he's admitted it?
Yeah.
Now, this one was revealed to be, after the death of the photographer, I understand, was revealed to be a child's toy submarine with a bit of a neck stuck onto the top.
It was that, yeah, you had one man's deathbed confession saying he was involved in the making of that. So instantly, the world said, oh, the photograph's rubbish then. No, I don't as quickly accept such a damning statement about it. He's now dead, and nobody ever interviewed him again.
So that one
after.
you want to believe, is that right?
It doesn't matter now. It's discredited, that photograph. You can no longer use that as the argument for the existence of the Loch Ness monster.
So what argument do you use? Because you've devoted your life to this.
The people that I keep coming across that don't talk publicly about it, that live there, say you live there for 30, 40 years, and then you see something, and you know the water, you know the waves and the boat wakes and the driftwood and everything else, and then you see something where you can see water coming off of its back. You can see things they describe as elephant-like bodies. These are big animals which... That's the mystery.
How can they survive without anybody actually seeing them? They've sent sonar
Without
devices...
anybody actually seeing them. Hundreds of people have seen them. I'll tell you why. Right, there's a layer of fish. There's several layers of fish. On the surface, for the first 5 feet, you've got one layer of fish, right? Now you've got a calm day. You've got these big animals swimming about. They're feeding on the fish. There they are, coursing through the water. The roof of their world is silent. Their back accidentally breaks the surface of the water because that layer of fish is that close to the surface. So that's the sighting you get. You see this back shooting through the water. You might even see a few fish jumping out of the way of it. Then it's away down and gone.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that?
Not quite yet, but I'm patient.
He is. He is. Give it take a stick or two. Absolutely.
Esther,
Now,
it's often actually thought to be a plesiosaur, isn't it? That is, which died out 65 million years ago. I've just been to Venezuela, to the Lost World. I crashed in the rainforest on the way back. And I'm going back to Iron Tupui, which is kind of virtually the size of Wales, and it's 2.4 billion years old. A kind of biologist in 1955 called Alexander Lamy was way up there. This is, I mean, we're talking about
are
the
you
Lost
about
World.
to tell us that there's a Loch Ness monster there
Well,
too?
I'm just helping the guy on this. I'm just saying it's in actual fact, this biologist was up there, and 2.4 billion years old, and there's a great river up there, and he thought what he, from a distance, looked like very giant river otters. When he got closer, he then did drawings, and he did drawings of plesiosaurs.
These animals exist all over the world, but there's a family of them existing in the British Isles. That's what fascinates me.
Now, wait a minute, you two. Chris.
You really expect me to contradict Brian Blessed?
No, I want
He's very big and he's very fit.
He's big and hairy, but he's gentle, isn't he? So,
Indeed. No, I mean, seriously, what seems to impress both Brian and Stephen is the sincerity of the people, the eyewitness accounts that they've heard. And I don't think we need to doubt the sincerity of the eyewitness accounts, but the problem is that we know that eyewitness accounts are often notoriously unreliable for a whole range of reasons.
well, give us a couple of reasons. Why should anyone lie? I mean, I know that it helps tourists.
I just said they're not lying.
What are they
They are
doing?
not lying. Eyewitness testimony, psychologists have shown this in experiment after experiment, just is not very reliable. People get details wrong. People see what they expect to see a lot of the time.
You can't see a 15-foot hairy thing and walk straight into it by mistake.
Okay, we've got unreliable eyewitness testimony. We've got photographic evidence, which seems to be a bit dubious. I mean, Stephen's just given us several examples. We've got promises of very convincing evidence, but great. I mean, I hope it does convince me. If it does, I'll quite happily come back on the programme
What about
and
the
admit
wish
I was wrong.
is father to the thought? As Brian said, we want monsters to exist, don't we?
I think we're actually on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
There's no conflict here. I share what you're saying very much so. There certainly is a need.
But he doesn't believe it
What guys on your side are doing, like Grosvenor Krantz and people like that, anthropologists like that, is the kind of indisputable kind of, which bores me so much, is all the footprints and stuff, but they are pretty impressive. And of course, in Canada and in Russia, when a creature dies, it is quickly eaten up, and therefore bones very quickly disappear in the wilderness.
Are you saying, wait a minute, Brian, we have a footprint here. I don't want to bore you, but tell us about this footprint.
This footprint was found in Florida in 1996 at the site of an attack on some domestic chickens and ducks.
This is the sort of thing you meant.
This is the skunk monster.
This is the skunk ape.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about this is that zoologically, the animal which has been described cannot exist. I mean, the animal's described as something like a cross between a dog and a monkey. And if you look at this, Esther,
yes,
you've got the pad here of a dog, but no claws. It's got fingernails. It's got fingernails like a monkey.
Couldn't anyone just fake that, really?
Yeah, but why?
Just to amuse you, really? And because people, as Brian has said, want to believe in monsters, are desperate to believe in monsters.
Well, I tend to agree with Brian. And again, who wants to argue with Brian Blake? But, and I've actually just written a book about monsters and about the way that they tie in with all the other different sorts of paranormal phenomena. But there's no doubt that there are new animals waiting to be discovered.
Let me just take
the Yeti is a new animal.
Okay.
A flesh and blood animal.
If it exists, it will
does
be.
exist.
And you're convinced?
Gigantopithecus blacki.
I beg your pardon?
An animal which is akin to a giant orangutan, which has been supposedly extinct for the last 500,000 years.
But it hasn't been photographed?
I haven't seen any conclusive photographs.
Right, now let's talk about photographs, because I'm interested in the beast of Bodmin. Now, I may be a little bit sceptical here and there.
Seen that.
You don't like this photograph?
I've seen it. No, that photograph's awful.
What? Why?
Well, how long have we got?
Well, as long as you like. It seems to me that there's a sheep with a beast.
Well, it would be if it wasn't for the fact that it's a domestic cat. If you look at its ears, if you look at the shape of the muzzle, and if you look at the length of the tail with the ratio to the length of the body, it's a very large moggy that has been very cleverly photographed. And I would not like to hazard a guess whether somebody actually took it by mistake out of focus or whether somebody did something very clever with it.
All right, so it's not a puma. You don't believe there are?
Of course I do. I've seen them. But that isn't one of them.
How many have you seen?
2.
Fine. And what do they look like?
I saw what was, as a zoologist, I am convinced that the animal I saw in May 97 on Bodmin Moor was a half-grown female puma. There was nothing else it could have been.
What is this peculiar thing next to you?
Therein lies a really interesting tale.
Is it based on a monster that people have actually seen?
Yes, it is. The interesting thing is I bought this in a village in the middle of Mexico. And in the last 5 years there have been accounts of a creature known as the chupacabra, which is a vampiric entity. And I went out to
I know vampire
Mexico.
bats. In fact, I've seen photographs of vampire bats.
I've been in a cave with some vampire bats.
Right, and very unpleasant they look too. In fact, they have teeth which are vaguely familiar to
The
me, but I
trouble
won't
is
go into
with
that.
vampire bats, there's 3 species of them, and none of them are bigger than a packet of cigarettes.
So they're teeny animals.
They're
So what
teeny
you're
things.
talking about is something huge.
This is something totally peculiar. And the interesting thing is that it's been reported all across Spanish-speaking Central America.
Now, I want to ask you a question, Jonathan. If you believe in some of them, have you got to believe in all of them? So do you believe in the Yeti, Loch Ness Monster, and these vampire things, and the Beast of Bodmin? I mean, do you believe in it all?
I believe in all sorts of things, but I don't necessarily believe that they're all flesh and blood. If enough people believe in things, they start to happen.
All right, let's test this. Let's test this. Super theory. So that if enough people believe in it, it becomes true. Let's now take crop circles, because these are very interesting. Will, you will admit here publicly and on television that you have from time to time helped to make crop circles, yes?
I have, yeah.
Right. And we have film of that because the BBC filmed it for a BBC programme called Country File when you were making a crop circle with some friends by night.
Now, I know it's too dark to see the detail, but for those of you who are interested, this man's using a pine plank 5 foot long and 6 inches wide. The farmer who owns this field allowed us to do this because this is the first time in history that the construction of an intricate crop circle has been carried out at night without lights and recorded on videotape. It's proof it can be done.
Now, a lot of people, Will, thought that circles like that could only be made by aliens from space or another planet because they were so complex and no one ever saw them being made. What do you think?
Well, and there's proof that we made a complex pictogram.
Now, Reg, who everybody remembers from the Trogs, fabulous musician, is also famous now for the fact that you believe in corn circles.
I think 95% of them, I believe, are hoaxed. But even the hoaxers that are doing them sometimes have little orange lights above their heads while they're doing them. It's as though somebody else is pulling the strings in some cases.
You mean he's under influence?
Upon what criteria do you base that statistic?
What,
95% of them are made by humans.
The ones that I've actually been in and dowsed, and I did actually start dowsing when I was 17.
You mean with a twig, like a water diviner?
I did when I first started with a twig, but I was
and
in
what
the
were
first...
you dowsing for?
Water. An old bricklayer who was just about to retire was actually showing me how to do it.
But
I hadn't seen it before.
When you went into crop circles,
yeah.
Why were you taking the twig with you then?
I didn't. I was talking to Busty Taylor in the first crop circle I ever went into, and a man was overhearing what we were saying, and I noticed while we were talking that he had a couple of dowsing rods, and I said, why have you brought these? He said, I can't use them, I bought them for a friend. I said, do you mind if I use them? Because I'd never used the metal ones. And so I walked to the outside of the circle, and they opened out. As I walked across to half the radius, they crossed.
What did that mean?
When I got to the middle, they opened out, and likewise on the journey out the other side.
So what
I don't know what it meant. All I knew is in this particular circle, there was an energy at work, because they worked. I found water about 3 times in my life. One of the houses I actually built for myself, I found 3 rivers, and we actually tapped one of those rivers and brought up water, which we used.
Dowsing is a very practical talent. People know about that. You can hire a water diviner. You know that, that those twigs, for some strange reason, will respond to that. But are you saying to me that even though Wicked Will, goes out in the middle of the night to create these masterpieces in the fields, you still believe that there is something supernatural about them?
Yes, I do. I mean, we've tested some of them, and not all of them. There's been responses with the... you want to
Go on, what are you going to say?
That's great.
I'm sorry to kind of... You were saying then that you've actually been into some, what you would call fake crop circles, i.e. man-made crop circles, and you've still found the dowsing reaction.
No.
But it's interesting because a lot of crop circle experts have done that.
Yes,
it's many times been shown on record.
You know, I don't know what they're finding.
Experts have gone in to a circle that we know has been made by people, and they've said this is genuine, no doubt about it, it's genuine.
I want to know about these orange lights. Tell me about these orange lights.
I mean,
what
people
are they?
have said that they've had orange lights hovering above them.
Have you ever had an orange light?
These orange lights don't just happen over crop circles, you know. That we had 3.5 million gallons of water disappear out of a lake in Andover one night. A gentleman walking his dog sees an orange orb of light and a spiral of water. Where was it going? I don't know. It happened in Japan, in a rice paddy field, with a crop circle in the rice paddy field, 3.5 million gallons. In Bangladesh and in Australia, 3.5 million gallons of water. The trout farmers, 1 mile down the road from Andover, were fuming because it nearly killed their trout. It left 6 inches of water.
There
is something going on.
There's something up there that's blooming thirsty. I'll tell you that for free.
Unless they're going to put it back when we finally mess up the planet.
I don't think you need to reach for dowsing to show that there really is a genuine crop circle phenomenon. Now, I disagree with the 95% assertion. I think there's far less hoaxes than that. Nobody denies that people like Will go out and make crop circles, but when you look at how long it takes them to make, now that particular experiment took several hours to make, and others have shown the same thing, but there have been formations which we know have appeared within very short periods of time, less than an hour. There's also eyewitness testimony of people who've actually watched them appear.
They're all anecdotal stories. There's not a shred of concrete evidence.
Why don't we see some pictures of proper crop circles?
Have you got a proper crop circle?
There's some quite nice ones here. Now, are these made by people?
Looks like Will to me.
Now, one has to know the story of that one.
That particular formation appeared within a 45-minute period. Now, I realise this has been denied, but the facts are there are witnesses who will testify that this formation appeared within 45 minutes one Sunday afternoon at about 5:30 tea time. Now, we've got a Stonehenge security guard, a farmer and a pilot who will testify that was not there before 5:30, but by 6:15 this had appeared.
Right, now your belief has not been shaken at all by the fact that you're sitting next to Will, whom we've seen on film creating crop circles like that.
Well, as I say, I accept that some formations are man-made, but there are many which simply cannot be explained by that. And also you've got the scientific work which has been done, which shows categorically that there's biological changes going on inside the crop laid down in some of these circles.
Because what I'm just doing is testing how good we are at believing. Now, Reg, you believe so many things. You believe in UFOs and...
I started out just, I was sceptical in 1990. I walked into the first crop formation. As I say, I doused that. I found that there was an energy. I didn't know what the energy. I'd only doused for water before, and I was getting readings off that I didn't understand. Even between the circles, I was getting the same kind of reading as though there was an invisible circle between each of the circles.
Is it true that you've spent all that lovely money that you got from the royalties
from
your music on researching these things?
I've spent about 12,000, I expect.
Still a lot of money, isn't it?
That sounds a lot of money, but I'm also into free energy as well, which I've put about, thousands and thousands into.
Do you believe in the Yeti
results.
and the Loch Ness Monster?
I phoned the National History Museum because they were doing a programme on television, and I wanted to run one of my ideas past the guy that was actually looking, the scientist. And I said, have you ever stopped to think that maybe if you looked for a hole somewhere in the lake, so that there was, you think it's a landlocked lake, I said, if you find a hole, maybe it's like the salmon, that they go out to the Sargasso, feed out there, and 4 years later they come back, have their offspring, and go out. But if there is
Lots of people come to my van there and they say, well, yeah, but what about all these tunnels and caverns underneath the loch, which you're talking about? But I don't hold with that. I think whatever's in Loch Ness is locked in there.
Right, let's stop for a moment talking about monsters. Let's just for a moment move on to other psychic phenomena. Now, Phyllis, you're a witch?
I am.
Right.
Right.
And married to a witch, are you?
Yeah. He prefers to refer to himself as a Type A Taoist.
How do you do? You're a Type A... What is that?
He's a New Yorker. He's a New Yorker.
Oh, right. And how did you two meet?
We met in a dream.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the dream. I had done a little love spell, and about 8 months later, I started to think it wasn't working, and I had a dream. We all dream. These are gifts that we all have. We've simply forgotten them in Western culture.
I
They've
wouldn't
been
like to meet my
suppressed.
dreams, I tell you that.
Really?
Particularly after eating cheese, but carry on. Go on.
Well, then I can recommend some other things to eat that'll give you pleasant dreams.
So did you dream him?
I dreamt of a tall, dark-haired man. I couldn't see his face, who invited me to go for a ride on a black and chrome motorcycle, and I got on the bike, and we took off, and there was all this wonderful laughter, and I woke up, and the phone was ringing. And it was a friend of mine who was urging me to go out with a friend of his, who was fabulous. And any woman in her right mind would have said yes, but I was saying no because I was waiting for the sign that I'd asked the universe to send me of love. And then he said, well, he rides a Harley. And I said, a Harley? He said, yeah, it's a motorcycle. I said, I know. What color is it? He said, it's black and chrome. And I met him 4 days later, and we're married and having a very good time.
Wow. What can I say? Ron, you had a spiritual experience.
I think basically it's interesting when Buddha, I'm not a Buddhist, when Buddha actually started to kind of break the bubble of the universe underneath the bobo tree, after years and years and years of intensive kind of concentration and focus and jungles, etc., when he burst through the bubble of the universe and resisted Mara and the dark forces, and he came out of it, then when all the villages he went into, people said, looking at these marvelous eyes of the Buddha, are you a god? He said, no. Are you a saint? He said, no. What are you? He said, I am awake. And to a certain extent, I think in the world we're suffering slightly from being asleep. Marguerite Lasky always talked about a peak experience, where suddenly in your life you know something, not your education, not what you've been taught, not books, not anything. You can be walking by the river, you can be kind of making love, it can be music, whatever it is, and suddenly you know something. It's called a peak experience, and you're beginning to kind of wake up, and want us to kind of, that door opens, and that's what it's all about. But to a certain extent in this day and age, our hearing's going, our eyesight, all the noise, we don't see the night, all the cities, all the kind of neon lights, we don't see night, all that's going on, and our senses are beginning to die. And to a certain extent, we still need to awake. And when that awakening starts to take place, then of course you start to see, we pride ourselves on being superior. Our eyesight's dreadful compared to a heron who can see a mile away all the fish, all the koi carp in my pond. But when you go into the wilderness, we all need at some time or other in our life to have 40 days and 40 nights of the wilderness like Jesus Christ. So that we can start to hear, start to see again. We need to awake.
I'll tell you the other thing we can do, and that is rearrange our furniture. It's become all the rage, has it not? I'm going to pronounce it all wrong, Barbara.
This actually works.
This
actually works.
What, feng shui?
Yes.
Wait a minute, I might be saying it wrong.
Feng shui depends on...
Feng shui?
Feng shui.
Right, now, tell me why you've been in that, Barbara.
2 years ago, I was involved in a helicopter crash. I stared death in the face. I was almost killed. And afterwards, I began to take a look at the way I was living my lifestyle. And I realized that following the crash, I had broken my back and I was in a plaster cast for 4 months. And I didn't like a lot of furniture or a lot of symbolism around me. And I decided that I wanted to clear out the clutter from my life and start again, renew my life again. And at that time I lifted an article in the Daily Mail about feng shui, and I realized that what I was doing, clearing out the clutter, moving things around my house, brightening it up and mending things which were broken, all had the basics in feng shui, which is the Chinese science.
Right, now Stephen, you are, what do you call it, a guru?
No, I'm a publisher.
Right, but a publisher who specialises in publishing feng shui.
Yes, we do a magazine, Feng Shui for Modern Living.
Well, we thought we'd do it in this studio, Stephen, if you don't mind. So the first thing we have to do is sort out which...
We have to find out what directions are where.
Right, so it's north, south, west, east and all that.
Exactly.
Right,
so,
and you've got a special map here?
Well, I've got a low pan, which is a Chinese compass. And
right.
The idea of this rather elaborate-looking instrument is to find out exactly where north is, which in fact is in this direction.
Okay.
Having established where north, south, east and west are, you then might like to energize one sector or another to get the energy flowing, to get effects happening.
So what have you done here? You've got that blue thing there, which is full of water.
This is the north, and that's traditionally associated with a career. So if we wanted to emphasize the career of somebody living in this imaginary room, then we would accentuate water in that quarter.
Very good.
If, however, you wanted to improve your networking,
yes, please.
And that sort of thing, then we were looking, in fact, instead at the northeast, which is over there, in that direction. And what we might put there is something like a wind chime, which I have here.
That's very pretty. Lovely.
Rather pleasant sounding.
And this is for networking, is it?
Yes. Shall we go across?
Yes, let's go. What do you want me to carry with me?
I'd like you to take a few other things on the way.
Candle.
And a couple of crystals, if you have enough hands for those.
I have, yes, yes. This is very good for the muscles.
Indeed.
Yes, developing the muscles, feng shui.
And in the case of this one, I think it's good for stretching as well, because I have to reach right
What's
up
this
here.
going to do for us?
Well, this is the network corner, and it emphasizes the metal energy in there, and it helps stimulate the chi there. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. You've got to clear clutter and generally, smooth the room out.
Yes. Whoops.
And if we wanted to improve romantic aspirations or look for a partner...
Yes, please. Always in favour of that,
and,
yes.
generally get that moving.
Yes.
Then we would work on this corner, which is the southwest.
Right, would you mind knocking on that?
Okay, let's see what happens. Excellent.
Thank you very much indeed.
This is associated with the earth, so we put something here associated with the earth, like
so
these
for your
crystals.
love life, a bit of earth.
Absolutely, and then to really get it stimulated,
Those
you
are
might
crystals,
add,
aren't they?
Yeah, they're natural calcite. You might add a little bit of fire.
South this is, isn't it? South,
No, southwest.
Okay, right.
So a candle to give a little bit of fire to get that moving.
What have we got up here? Can we turn on our
Well, over here in the southeast, which is the wood sector of the house, you can add a little bit of moving water to stimulate that. And what we've got here is air
Would a
moving
loo
through
do,
water.
or a wash basin?
Well, a loo definitely wouldn't do, because a loo flushes the energy away, because water carries the energy. So
Right.
if you have a loo in that corner, then it's likely to decrease.
Fish tank?
Yeah, fish tank's okay.
Okay, so we got a house full of crystals and candles and fish tanks. What do you think about this?
Not convinced, surprisingly enough. I mean, the idea that, yeah, clearing away the clutter, having lots of nice danglies about will make you feel better, no argument.
Well, I'll tell you what
This-
we'll do.
okay.
Hold on a second, because I'm
Okay.
afraid we've just run out of time, but you've given me a wonderful idea. Firstly, I want to thank everyone here, because certainly I think all these beliefs make life a great deal more interesting and a great deal more fun. We have now feng shuied our studio.
Very quickly.
We are now going to get 10 million more viewers through our studio, thanks to what you've done, or you'll have to come back and do it all again for us. Is that a deal?
Excellent. Yes,
Right.
that's a deal.
Well, it's up to you to make that come true. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed meeting a few of the monsters, myths, and feng shui devices that we've shown you. Until next time, from us all, goodbye.
Artist David Shepherd is Esther's guest tomorrow afternoon here on BBC Two. Back to the kitchen next, so grab your frying pan for Delia's summer collection.
I've devoted my life to my granddaughters.
My mother didn't think I could cope alone.
You're not fit to be a father. I just wanted what was best for them. You won't meet anyone worth knowing in a chip shop.
I just wanted a voice.
Who am I to argue? I only brought them up for the last 18 years.
I'm more than grateful, but they're my daughters.
I've been misunderstood, so my services are no longer required.
Wanting it all and getting it. Sex, chips and rock and roll. Coming in September to BBC One.
Stefan's Garden Roadshow goes to Worcestershire in half an hour. So first on BBC Two, there's just time for a snack.